All right, on 2.1, we're going to start talking about graphing, specifically the slope intercept form of graphing. So here you have the very first thing that we have is this formula y equals right here, y equals mx plus b. You should be somewhat familiar with this. The m represents the slope. Again, I have right here, the m represents the slope. Also, you should recognize some of this stuff already. The slope is also m. Is also defined as rise over run. Literally on a line, how much is it? The slope of the line. Is it really a steep line? Is it just gradually going up? So it's the amount that it rises compared to how much it runs over. Okay, so we'll be looking at some graphs in just a minute. The other way to do this third way to do it, is m equals y2 minus y1. And that's being divided by x2 minus x1. That's if you have 2 points, x, y, and let's say that's your first point, and then you have another point, and let's say this is your second point. So then you can calculate the slope of the line. Again, you can do it by rise over run, or you can calculate it if you knew the points just by using the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then the second thing about this formula, y equals mx plus b. Now b is this is called the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the point of the line where it intercepts or crosses the y line. So again, this is the y-intercept is where it crosses the y line. So let's look at, make sure you know how to recognize it. So let's look at some equations. So again, if you have an equation, y equals 3/4 x plus 2, well, what is the m? The slope, okay? The slope is your m, and what is it in this case? Remember, y equals mx plus b. So the m you can see is 3/4, and then the b, which stands for the y-intercept, the y-intercept would be 2, or written as a point, 0, 2. This one over here, the slope, again, the m is here. It's a negative slope, -1/2, and the y-intercept is -4, or written as a point, 0, -4. Now, let's go actually to graphing it. Like, how do we actually graph this? Well, here's a piece of graph paper, and you have y equals 2/3 x minus 4. And again, recognize y equals mx plus b. It's in that form. That means the m is 2/3, and the b is -4. Again, this is your y-intercept. All right, so what I recommend doing is starting at the y-intercept. Again, notice I have my lines labeled. Y and the x line are labeled. The y is your vertical line. So the y-intercept, b, right here, is at -4, or 0, -4. So if you go to 0, -4, and put your first point, that's the first point on the line. The second thing you need to notice, the m is 2/3. And remember, m is also rise over run. So we're going to rise 2 spaces from this starting point, the y-intercept. We're going to rise 2 spaces. And then I'm going to run 3 spaces. And there's my next point. You can also do the same thing, rise 2, run 3, put another point. Rise 2, run 3, put another point. And then you can see that it's a constant slope of what you're doing, and that's what slope is. It's a constant rise over a constant run, and that's going to be able to graph our line when we do this. Okay, so this red line is this equation. And every one of those points, this point right here, 0, -4, 3, -2, 6, 0, and 9, 2, all of those points are on that line. Let's look at another one. Same thing. The M is negative 4/3. The B is positive 6 or 0.6. Again, this is called your y-intercept. I suggest you start there. So at the y-intercept, you're going to put a 0.6. Again, it's on the y line. And then from there, notice again, the M is rise over run. And in this problem, it's a negative 4 rise. So which, I know the word rise, you want to think it as going up, but remember, rise is actually like the vertical change, the up or down change. In this case, it's a negative 4. So you're going to go down 4 spaces. And then you're going to go, that's down 4. And then you're going to go over 3 spaces. And there's your next point. Down 4, over 3. Now the question always comes up, like, how many points do we need to show? Well, the more points you show, the more accurate you will be. I highly suggest 3 or 4 points. That way, you know your line is very accurate. And again, if you have a steady hand, you can connect this, draw those lines. If you need a ruler, then grab a ruler or some type of straight edge to be able to connect those dots, to be able to make it a nice straight line. And again, that line is this equation. And every one of those points, 0.6, 3.2, 6, -2, and 9, -6. Every one of those points are on that line. Now, let's go backwards. What if we wanted to already draw the line, and I want you to write the equation to that line? Well, remember what we need to show or emphasize on this lesson is the M and the B. The M stands for slope. And the B stands for the y-intercept. And again, I recommend that you always start at the y-intercept. So where is the y-intercept on this line? Well, notice the y-intercept, if you look at the y line, here's the y line, where does that pink line cross that, the blue y line right here? Where does it cross that? Well, it crosses right here. And that point is 0, -2. So the y-intercept is -2. And so now all we need to do is the slope. And remember, slope is rise over run. And I always tell the students when I'm teaching this, I imagine a person on the left of the line. Imagine this person, and if he's walking along that, notice he's going uphill, which means the answer will be a positive slope. And I suggest you use any 2 points on that line. And you might not see, like, where are the points? Well, if you look closely, like here is a point right here, because it goes down over 3 and down 1. So here's 3, -1. And if you keep talking, here's another point right there, because it's 6, 0. Again, you can easily see that where it crosses evenly. So here's another point, and choose any of those 2 points, and you can notice the rise and the run between those points. So I recommend, again, just using the y-intercept. Notice it's rising 1, and it's running 3. Rise 1, run 3. Rise 1, run 3. And so the slope has a constant slope of 1 over 3. So the equation, once you find your M, once you find your B, then you found the equation of the line. Y equals 1/3 x minus 2 is the equation of this line. Let's try another one, the same idea. Again, a little bit quicker. You have the y equals mx plus b formula. Again, this is your y-intercept. So at the y line, it crosses at -2. And then you need to find the slope. But again, notice if you draw a person, imagine a person at the left of that line, And notice he's going downhill. So this will end up being a negative slope. I automatically know my M will be negative on this. And again, you choose 2 points that are on there. It doesn't make a difference which 2 points. It really does not. Any 2 points. So I'm just going to imagine using this point right here and then go down 1 over 2. So it's negative 1/2. Again, don't forget the x. So this has got to, like y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b. So you're following that formula, and this is the equation of that line. And then lastly, let's look at this problem. So what if I want to find the equation of a line, but I'm doing it without graphing? Like, how do you actually do it without graphing? Well, 2 things. One, we're going to start off using y equals mx plus b. We're focusing on y equals mx plus b. And again, if we could find the m and the b, then we're home free. Then we know what the equation is. So let's first focus on the m. Well, remember the other formula I gave you? Besides y's over run, there's a formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you don't have to use a graph. You don't have to look at the graph. You can actually just use a formula. And this is your x, this is your y, this is your x, this is your y. And so it says y2, so you take 4 minus y1, which is 2, and that's over x2 minus x1. And notice x1 is a negative 1. And so the numerator, 4 minus 2, and that simplifies to 2/4, and so that this goes to 1/2. So my slope is 1/2. So I automatically know the slope is 1/2. Now, the part that you have to figure out is the b. Remember, the b stands for y-intercept. The y-intercept, where it intercepts the y line at. And here we don't know it. Unless you graphed it and looked at the graph, you don't really know what the y-intercept is. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the y-intercept. And you're like, well, how are we going to calculate it? Well, what else do we know? Well, if you look at these 2 points that we're given, this point right here, and this point, we know that that is a point of x, y. So choose one of those 2 points. It does not make a difference which one. I'm going to choose this first one, negative 1, 2. And notice your negative 1 is your x, so I'm going to put negative 1 right here. And then 2 is your y, I'm going to put 2. And I don't know the b. Remember, b stands for the y-intercept. You don't know the y-intercept. And then what we're going to do is we're going to calculate and find out what b is. So this is negative 1/2. And then we're going to add 1/2 to both sides. And then b equals 2 1/2. So now, the final answer. Remember, I'm trying to write an equation of a line. So I know my y-intercept. I know my slope. And so now I just need to put it all together. And I have the equation of the line that passes through negative 1, 2 and 3, 4.